What's up, guys? It's TechnoViking23 coming to you today with some Raid Shadow Legends, and we have finally done it. We've beaten the hard Doom Tower rotation on my main account. This is the first time I've been able to do it, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. Just wanted to go through, talk about the experience a little bit, in case some of you all are thinking about maybe pushing through the hard Doom Tower. We're going to talk about a few things. Some of the tougher rooms and things we had trouble with, and also get into how difficult this last boss fight was, and overall just kind of talk about the experience. And I will say there's a big difference in the floors. It really surprised me. Like the first 85, 90 floors really were not that bad when it came down to it, but then once we got toward the end, the last 20, 25 floors, it's like there was a huge increase in the difficulty on some of the waves. I'm going to be posting some screenshots here showing the teams I used to get through some of the various floors. I believe floor 98 was pretty tough. 109, 114, 116, 119 off the top of my head are pretty difficult, and mainly because of Rotos and Siffy. They are an absolute problem in the Doom Tower hard. As annoying as they are in the arena, they are just as annoying in hard Doom Tower, just having to deal with it, especially because the Siffies are incredibly fast, running at over 260 speed. So when you get to like the last 20 floors, it becomes a gear check on your account for the most part. It was a pretty eye-opening thing for me. I had to rebuild quite a few champions and spend a lot of silver, and in some cases just put champions into gear that made them fast enough to go first. I have a lot of good legendaries on my account, but I don't have a lot of this really super amazing offensive legendaries, so what we wound up having to do more often than not was go with full crowd control teams, use a lot of provoke, use a stun set, things like that. I'm going to get into some of the champions that I used later on in the video. I'll go through my roster and kind of show you the champions that we were using for most of this, but it was kind of a fun but also very frustrating experience, and I just want you guys to understand, if you're going to try to push the later floors of hard Doom Tower, just be ready to run into a lot of adversity, and if you don't have the gear on your account, it's possible you may not be able to get through it. It was a stretch for me. There were a couple of floors like 109 and 114 where I had to spend a day or two honestly just running it over and over and over again until I got the right RNG. I had to manual it quite a bit. It's times like if you're using Seer to try to nuke, it's like figuring out rocket science sometimes. Like she'll kill everybody sometimes she'll only kill 3, and then the Rotos kills 3 of your people and you got to start over. But just a lot of frustrating times, so prepare yourself for that. With that said, I kind of have to give a couple shout outs here to some resources that were super helpful for me while I was going through the hard Doom Tower. Soda Dragon Gaming, one of my fellow content creators who makes a lot of amazing Doom Tower content in addition to other raid content. Definitely go check out his channel. His boss guides are absolutely incredible for the Doom Tower, and he was pretty key with me being able to beat the Scarab King, especially all the way up at the top. Just having the turn meter control team to be able to beat that was very helpful, having his videos as a resource to build that. 69 Boomer, another really good content creator, especially for in-game content in the arena. Watched a couple of his videos, especially his one on the Frost Spider, actually, because all you really need here is Eleanor, since she has the unresistible HP burn on her A1. Obviously, we have Lydia here, so that kind of helped as well, blocking the revive, but the HP burn helps to get through this fight a little bit faster. Also, my Rio Bone Spear here, I basically built her just like Boomer did in his videos, so I'll have a link to his channel and some of his stuff down below. Definitely give him a look there. Dirtbag Gaming actually has one of the better guides I've seen on the last 5 or 6 Doom Tower floors. I'll link that video as well down below. It was super helpful in being able to scout out what we were going to have to deal with in terms of the waves, because like I said, there's multiple double Siffy, double Rotos. There's some Mountain Kings that can cause a lot of problems, especially if you're using magic champions. They can basically just one-shot you. They do a ton of damage. So it was very helpful having his video guides to be able to kind of look ahead and see what we were going to have to deal with. And then lastly, I have to give a shout out to my good friend HG60. A lot of you guys should know him if you're in the raid community, one of the smartest people in this community, and thankfully someone that I do have direct Discord conversations with quite a bit. We were in a clan together for a while. We both moved on since to more in-game focus, but it's just great having him as a resource, being able to bounce ideas off of him. And in this case, just have him listen to me complain and gripe and moan about how unfair the Doom Tower was. He taught me off the ledge several times while I was pushing this, especially when I was stuck on the double smash goat. I think it was like floor 98 where they just kept cleansing. And I was stuck on it for a couple days and I was ready to just give up. I was like, this is so frustrating. I'm going to quit the game over this. And it was just ridiculous. And he thankfully helped me out quite a bit and just kept me in it, kept my mind in it. And kind of told me, hey, you know, the last time you tried it, you only got to like floor 55. So focus on the fact that you're actually improving your account. You're actually getting better at it and you're progressing further and further. You know, even if you don't get it this time, look how much further you got than last time, and kind of helped me focus more on the positive aspect of it instead of just seeing like just failing over and over again like I was at times. So if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have finished this. He definitely taught me through it and helped me get through all the content. That said, though, let's jump into the champions we used. We'll take a look at some of the gear and the roster, and hopefully that'll be helpful for you guys to see. Alright guys, so here we are in the champion roster. I thought we'd take a look at a couple of the champions that I used to get through this rotation of hard Doom Tower. I did my best to not have to rebuild anybody that I used in other areas of the game, but I did have to go through and spend a ton of silver re-gearing some of these champions just to be able to get through some of these harder floors. But we got Lydia here, of course. I got her from Faction Wars. She's still in her basic build that I have written that I use pretty much everywhere, which is mainly just high accuracy, very fast, 316 speed, 472 accuracy. Just kind of have her built to do her debuffs and block revive. So I used her quite a bit, obviously for her decreased defense that she puts out there. It really helps to let you do a little bit more damage on some of the waves, and of course against the Frost Spider, she's basically guaranteed victory as long as you can get the Frost Spider down. She'll prevent it from reviving even if you don't have the HP burn up. So she was one that I used quite a bit. I use Raglan here and there, especially in some of the boss battles. Obviously she can cleanse, she can revive. She's got an amazing revive on a 2-turn cooldown. I've got her actually in an untouchable set from the Scarab King, even with a couple 5-star pieces in there. Still lets her run pretty high on the resistance at 453. She's kind of fast, 214. The one thing about the Doom Tower hard, as I mentioned, is as you get into the higher floors, like the last 20 or 30 floors or so, you just realize what a gear check it is. Like, you need some crazy fast champions. A lot of the Siffies in the last couple waves are running, you know, like I said, 260 plus. So you've really got to have some fast champions, which is why we wound up using Lady Kimmy quite a bit. We'll look at her here in just a minute. Didn't really use too many of these others. I used Mashallah a little bit here and there. His build is not anything crazy, just a good accuracy, kind of fast. But again, it's like a lot of my champions just simply aren't at that crazy high speed you need yet at the end game. So I'm still working on getting that gear on the account. So even though some of the champs feel like they're well built, once you get into the top end of the hard Doom Tower, it's like you realize, you know, you still got a lot of work to do on some of your gear. We used Rio here and there. I just actually picked her up from the last Void 2X, so she's like my newest Void Legendary. Absolutely love her. She's got probably my 3rd or 4th best set of speed gear on the account, so you can see there she's running about 263. Pretty fast. Got a little bit of resistance on her, lots of HP. We have her in a shield set and also a speed set. I basically built her just like Boomer did. I watched his video on how to build her, so I can use her as a Hegemon counter in the arena, and she's been doing pretty good with that so far. I'm actually going to have a fun video come out called Hunting Hegemon, where we use Riho to just go through the arena and basically farm Hegemon teams. But Boomer's got a great video on her. I'll link it down below so you guys can check that out. And I kind of just copied his build, which was a shield set and a speed set. Obviously, I don't have his gear on my account, but it still works pretty well for what we're trying to do there. So we used her in a couple floors, especially when we needed to, you know, heal up the team, cleanse, throw those debuffs back at the other team. So she was used here and there. Now, surprisingly, one of my workhorses throughout this hard Doom Tower run was Coronar. He was amazing. Now I have him built a little bit for 3v3 arena, hence the reaction pieces. I didn't actually change anything with his build. He is in a stun set as well. It's mainly so he can be really annoying on arena defense because he's got those AoEs. And when he's constantly attacking and reducing turn meter, he can also put out the stun. So you saw in a lot of those screenshots on some of the harder floors, we had Cornar in there, teamed up with Angar, who we're going to look at here in a minute. But Cornar's just super awesome at crowd control. He's got a provoke, he's got reduced turn meter. We put him in a stun set so that he's able to go through and do a lot of that. You can see here we got him in Fearsome Presence to give him a little bit of an extra chance to proc that stun from that gear. So even though he's not the fastest, you know, he's got a lot of HP, he's very tanky. He's, you know, really helped us get through a lot of those harder waves, just being able to lock out the enemy team with his provoke. So he was a godsend for this run through Hard Doom Tower. I don't have a lot of offensive firepower on my account. I seem to pull the better defensive legendary champions in most cases, so we kind of just had to make use with what we had, which is why we went with mainly just a lot of crowd control to get through a lot of these waves. Just to talk about Aneathway real quick, I kind of just used him in some of the lower end floors, and I use him a lot in normal Doom Tower as well toward the higher end, just because he has the block revive. I think it's his passive here. Yeah, anybody killed by him cannot be revived. So he comes in handy a lot when you're just going through the trash waves. If they have a lot of revivers, there's a couple of waves that have multiple revivers in them. He can really come in handy for that, being able to, once they're down, they won't come back. So kind of got to give him an honorable mention to use him here and there. Sir Nick is also pretty solid. Use him in a couple of the boss fights just for his unkillable buff. Helps keep you alive. Does a pretty good amount of damage as well. And his gear is kind of all over the place now because I had to steal some of his gear for other people, so we kind of just threw him in a couple of random pieces to make him serviceable for a couple of the boss fights. Now, my other big tank that I have to mention is Angar, another void tank that I really like. Champion I don't see too many people talk about all that much. Now, this is kind of a build that's a little weird because I wouldn't normally have him built this way for his normal use. He'd be very tanky with a ton of HP, but the problem was I really needed his provoke to get off quickly against the Siphy waves because, like I said, at the end of the Doom Tower, she's running 260 plus, so even with a speed aura lead, you're still going to have a tough time going before her, and if you can't go before the Siphy, it's basically GG because she's going to put out all her buffs, and it's going to take you forever, especially since in most cases you're not going to have a cleanser because you're going to need all those other spots. You're not going to have anybody to rip off those debuffs, or I'm sorry, those buffs. So it's important to get a provoke out quickly, so I had to rebuild him basically with accuracy and as much speed as I could get on him. So I've actually got him at 245, and then I was running him with Lady Kimmy in the lead, so he was going fast enough to get his provoke out first against the Siphy to keep her from being able to do anything. And then basically all my other CC champions like Cornar would pile on top of that with a turn meter with a stun, still throwing out the stuns, the decreased speed, and then that would just kind of snowball on top of Siphy to keep her from taking any turns, which would allow us to sort of control those waves and slowly wear them down. But his problem is, though, in this build, he doesn't have enough HP and his defense isn't very good either. So he was kind of a glass cannon provoker for us, but again, we had to just do what we had to do. And at this point, I'll probably rebuild him into more of a tanky build because I don't plan on really pushing Doom Tower hard that much now that I actually finished it once. It was kind of an exercise in frustration at times, so going to take a little bit of a break. Just wanted to get it done that one time. Coming down here, we did use Drexstar in quite a few battles. Now, my Drexstar is built a little weird. Doesn't have a lot of accuracy. I just kind of have him out there to be tanky, to resist, and get out his 3 hits. Still was very useful against the Nether Spider. Used him in that fight quite a bit. Eventually, I'm going to rebuild him, put a little bit more accuracy on him so he can actually put out more HP burns and harder content. But as he stands now, he's gotten me through everything I've ever used him in. You can see there we actually kind of put some of that new Hydra gear on him, just have a little bit of fun. But definitely great in every area of the game. He's awesome in the Doom Tower. Very helpful against several of the bosses. So very nice to have him to use. I also use Kantra quite a bit. She's really good with her kit. She's got the ability to steal those buffs, and also her A2 here, which attacks all enemies 3 times. This actually isn't bad to put her in a stun set. You can get some stuns off of this. And, I mean, she could do a block buffs, decrease attack, decrease speed, weaken, all this stuff here. It's absolutely nuts. And then on her passive, every time they're under a debuff, she drops their accuracy, which is really good. And then she's got the reduced damage. She's going to heal herself. which is absolutely crazy. Can also do the provoke. Really, really good champion. A lot of people sleep on. I think Cantor is really, really solid. She's coming back into the game a little bit. Definitely has a lot of use in hard Doom Tower. Also against the current Hydra bosses that are coming out. So definitely, if you've got her, give her a look. She's a really solid champion. So then we have Lady Kimmy, who I used a ton throughout this, just because, like I said, I don't have the speed gear on my account really, so we use her aura here, which gives us a 30% speed boost throughout the Doom Tower, and that's an absolutely amazing aura. She's one of my fastest champions on my account at 306. I think she's actually my third fastest behind Arbiter and Lydia. So she was usually going first all the time and is able to basically go out there and do the decreased speed debuff or to steal the turn meter and give us a little bit of turn meter boost. So very important, like I said, especially going against those Siffy waves. If you're able to go first and take those turns, you can start getting the CC in to lock them down so they're not going to be going at all, and you can kind of control those waves. We did use Brogni here and there. Now I need to rebuild my Brogni at some point. You see here he's doesn't even have a necklace, but I don't really think I've done much with him since I fused him. I just haven't really had much of a use for him anywhere. So I don't know. Since I have Duchess, I kind of don't use Brogni very much, but he's definitely somebody I need to rebuild at some point so I can start using him. It's more difficult content. Probably wind up putting him in a shield set at some point and just actually giving him some decent gear, but he's pretty good for some of the waves. You can bring him in. He's got the high resist aura for the Doom Tower, and then you can also use his HP burn. He's got the shields and everything, so just an all-around very solid champ. If you're having trouble with survivability, you can bring him in there for that. Then oddly enough, here we have Scylla the Drakes, and I talk about her all the time. Just such a great champion in this game. You still have her in a Relentless build. You can build her in a stun set as well if you need more control in those harder waves. But she's just an amazing champion. So we got her at 230 speed, 323 accuracy, and 3200 defense though. So she's a little squishy against the Mountain King waves. That's why you have to get that CC locked in so they're not taking turns and they're provoked on your Coronar, or in our case Engar. Were the two tanks we were using there, so she was able to kind of operate without having to worry about getting one shot by those Mountain Kings, because they are pretty ridiculous in the last couple of floors. But it's kind of crazy that you still get so much use out of Syl, even being a free login champion at 6 months. Even later in the game, as long as you keep improving her gear, she can do very well for you in a lot of different areas. So we used Syl quite a bit in the last 20 floors. You saw us use Elenarl there on the last boss. That's basically because she has the unresistible HP burn. You can put that on the two little spider babies and then put it on the main spider, and it will kind of help you knock it down a little bit quicker. So she's just kind of in a basic build there, a little bit of resistance and some accuracy, and just try to get her to survive long enough to do some damage there. And I think that's really it, other than, okay, we do have to mention Iron Brago. I actually have not used Iron Brago up until this point in the game. I fused him, never really found a use for him other than Orc Faction Wars. And I gotta tell you, he was a lifesaver. I wound up rebuilding him right around floor 100 and just giving him some accuracy and some damage and some speed. He's one of my faster champions now at 239 in terms of a defensive champion. And man, he can do some work. He's got all kinds of really solid abilities here. Duration, decrease the duration of the buffs. He's got the increased defense. Attacks all with the provoke, and then being able to give everybody 10% of his defense. Plus also has the Doom Tower defense aura, so really solid, really great in the Doom Tower. You can see there we didn't even roll all his gear up. We just kind of emergency built him for the Doom Tower, and he paid a lot of dividends. He was a very, very solid champion for this run through. And then obviously we got Duchess here. Now I didn't take her out of her arena build. I kept her in this gear. I had some trouble toward the end because even with her speed aura, she was getting outsped a lot. That's why we had to put Lady Kimmy in the lead a lot of times, because Duchess speed aura is only the 19%, so it wasn't allowing us to go ahead of the Siffy waves, so we had to use Lady Kimmy for that and try to work out a different solution. But I did use her probably for about 90% of the Doom Tower, just because she is so strong with all of her buffs and her ability to revive. Just an amazing champion, but we didn't take her out of her immunity build. We kind of just kept her in that. I didn't want to have to rebuild her if I could avoid it, so we got kind of lucky there and were able to get through. And I think that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, this did come down to using a lot of legendary champions. We did use Sylar here and there because she's built in the stun set from Faction Wars. so she was helpful in a couple of the waves to keep the enemy locked down. And then I have my Seer here, who I did rebuild, but she's just not that impressive. Honestly, I haven't been able to quite get the gear for it yet. I finally have been able to get her into a Savage and crit damage sets as of this Doom Tower. I rebuilt her 2 or 3 times as I was going through, and she actually did help me nuke wave 119, which was kind of surprising, but she was able to get me through that. I didn't use her that much though, just because she's not in a great spot with her gear quite yet. You know, she's only at 200% crit damage. I had to put her in crit rate gloves to get over the 100%. So it's tough to build her to be able to nuke in the hard Doom Tower at least. But, you know, this build, what she has here, it's fine for everywhere else I'm using her in the game, but hard Doom Tower is just a completely different story when it comes down to it. And I'm going through here just to see if there's anybody else that we use, and I don't really... we did use Dark Elaine here and there for some of the early Tormund battles, but toward the top end of the tower, she just doesn't have enough HP and defense to stay alive. You're getting hit so hard, it's like, yeah, she can, you know, resist and fire back with her big nuke ability whenever anybody gets frozen, but she's going to take one hit and be dead, so she's not really super useful later on, but she did help out with a couple of the initial Tormund waves going up through the main tower. And that's kind of why you see we have her built in the untouchable gear. That's kind of to use in arena sometimes to counter Tormund. And yeah, really that's it. I mean, you know, other than a couple rares like Reliquary Tender that we did use on some of the boss fights, just for cleansing and revive, that's really pretty much the run of it as we go through here. So it was kind of nice. I was building a couple of other champions like Ursula the Mourner, hoping I wouldn't have to actually use them, and was just glad that I was able to clear through the end of it there on the last day, or the second to last day, so we won't have to wind up rebuilding anybody else. And probably going to take a break from the Doom Tower now. I'll definitely still be pushing the other rotations of it, but that was honestly really stressful the last couple of weeks getting through this. You know, I spent a couple days on some of the floors just to get through it. Having to spend a ton of silver. That's why I only have 672,000 silver. I spent a ton of silver re-gearing people. Had to do a lot of extra farming in some of the dungeons to try to get some gear. Thankfully, there was a Fire Knight tournament recently, so I was able to get a lot of Savage gear from that. But it was very frustrating. So I'll warn you, you know, if you're going in for the first time trying to clear the hard Doom Tower, you know, like I said, the first 80 to 90 floors really were not that bad, surprisingly. And the bosses at this point, we all kind of have the rotations down, and there's a lot of videos out there on what you can do for those. But once you get into those last 20 floors, it is a whole different ball game with what you're going up against, with the type of speed you need. It's just gear requirements are really crazy, so just be prepared for that. And hopefully this video will help you out to get ready for that, kind of seeing what I had to do just to get through it. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of firepower, so we just wound up going with a lot of crowd control, a lot of stun, a lot of provoke. You know, some of those champions like Corner, I said, came in handy big time. So it's just nice to be able to get it done, to say we got it done, we got our icon, and now we don't have to worry about doing hard Doom Tower for a while until we get in further into our Ramanatu missions and have to start pushing to get those floors done. So anyways, guys, if you have any questions about anything you saw in the video, feel free to leave it down below. I do my best to get you an answer as soon as I can. As always, hope you guys are having a great day. Thanks as always for watching, and I will see you again next time.